In the world of reality TV drama, the currency that keeps viewers hooked is heated arguments, betrayals, and explosive situations. It was supposed to be just another day on the set of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, with the cast and crew getting ready for yet another dramatic filming session. They set up the cameras, adjusted the lighting, and practiced their lines. However, nobody knew that something unexpected was about to happen on this particular day, something so shocking and deeply personal that it would leave everyone in the room stunned. Confrontations, but this time it was about real life, real pain, and the truth that had been suppressed for too long. Lil Scrappy, the beloved rapper and longtime Love and hip-hop star, had built his reputation on resiliency. He had survived the rough streets, negotiated the competitive music industry, and fought personal demons in front of the world. Fans had followed his journey, supporting him as he battled with relationships, family, and his career. But behind the cameras, beyond the meticulously manicured image of a reality show, the studio was bustling as usual, with cast members chatting and crew members going about their daily business. But one woman stood off to the side, her presence noticeably different. She wasn't getting ready for a scene. She wasn't laughing or gossiping with the others. She was standing still, her body tense, her expression troubled. She was Lil Scrappy's assistant, a woman who had been by his side for years, managing his schedule, handling his business, and ensuring that everything in Scrappy's life went smoothly for the majority of people. She was a background character and invisible, but today she would not remain in the background. She took a deep breath before moving forward. The room didn't instantly quiet down, but those closest to her sensed something was amiss. Then she said, "I've never said this before, but it's time for the truth to come out." Her voice was firm but gentle, trembling with emotion but full of determination, and a few heads turned as the typical background chatter of the set began to fade as more people noticed the change in the atmosphere. Her words had weight. "I've kept this to myself for a long time, but I can't hide it anymore. It's time for people to know what happened." The room fell into complete silence, and everyone stopped what they were doing. Cast members used to scripted drama sensed that this was different, and some of them expected what was coming, while others braced themselves knowing that. When she was about to say something that would change everything, she closed her eyes for a moment to gather her thoughts. Then, with quiet intensity, she spoke the words that would send shockwaves through the set. "Scrappy once physically hurt me when he was drunk and lost control. It happened more than once, and for a moment, the room froze as if time had stopped. No one responded, and some people gasped as her words hung heavy in the air. "I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to hurt him," she said, her voice cracking, "but it wasn't right. No one should have to go through that, especially not in the name of love and hip-hop." While others stood still, trying to process what they had just heard, this wasn't just another argument about love and hip-hop, and it wasn't a made-up plot for ratings. Her eyes were filled with unshed tears, but she didn't let them go. There were nights when Scrappy would come home after drinking, and his temper would already be out of control. I never knew what would set him off. It was like walking on eggshells. Some cast members shifted uneasily, while others looked down and avoided eye contact. Those who had previously seen glimpses of Scrappy's temper now were struggling with the reality of what she was saying. She took a deep breath to steady herself before continuing. "He didn't know his own strength," she said quietly. "I know he didn't mean to hurt me, but when he was drunk, it was like he became someone else, someone I didn't recognize." In an attempt to make sense of the revelation, some cast members whispered to one another, and others looked at her with a mixture of shock and sympathy. This wasn't the Lil Scrappy they knew, or at least not the version of him they had seen, but for her, this had been her reality for years, a reality she had endured in silence since then. "I'd kept telling myself that it would stop, that he would change, that it was just the alcohol, but it kept happening." Her voice faltered, but she persisted. "For a long time, I blamed myself, thinking that maybe I had done something wrong, that maybe I had triggered him. But now I know that it wasn't my fault, and I won't be silent any longer." The truth of what she was saying was undeniable. It was about abuse, not reality TV or scripted drama. The room had once been filled with casual conversation and the usual. Although Scrappy wasn't present, the weight of the accusations against him was felt in every corner of the room for a long time. A crew member cleared their throat to break the silence. When someone finally asked, "Did you ever tell anyone?" She shook her head. "No, I was afraid I didn't want to ruin his career, and I didn't want people to turn against him." The pre-show excitement now felt oppressive. It was evident that there was no going back. The truth had been revealed, and now the world would have to face it. The silence in the room was oppressive. No one moved or spoke. It seemed as though time had stopped, the weight of the assistant's words pressing down on everyone in the room. She had finally spoken her truth, revealing a reality that had been hidden for far too long. But now that the words were out, there was no taking them back. When the studio was once full of the typical energy of a love and hip-hop filming day, it was now filled with tension. Everyone was waiting for someone to answer, waiting for the next moment to come. Finally, one of the producers broke the silence. "Are you saying Scrappy was physically abusive?" was the question that hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. The assistant swallowed hard, and she said yes, her voice no longer trembling, now firm with the conviction of someone who had been holding in their pain for too long when he drank too much after he lost. "Control, I was the one who paid the price." While some cast members and crew members turned away in discomfort at the revelation, others gazed at her with a mixture of shock, sympathy, and disbelief on their faces. "Did anyone else know?" a voice asked from the back of the room. The assistant hesitated before responding, and some people suspected she did because they saw how Scrappy behaved when intoxicated and how his temper flared. Up over nothing, but no one ever asked, and I never told her. She took a deep breath and looked around the room. I had shielded him for years, telling myself that he was under stress and that I had made excuses for him. But the truth was that I was afraid that people would turn against him. One of the other cast members, who had known Scrappy for years, shook her head. "We've all seen Scrappy get angry. He's always had a temper." But this time she paused, looking directly at the assistant. "I can't keep living in fear because it wasn't just one night. It happened more than once, and because I know I'm not the only one," the producer said, and the assistant hesitated as if deciding how much to reveal. "I don't know for sure," she admitted, "but I know that I wasn't the only one who saw his anger, and that I wasn't the only one who was afraid of what he might do when he lost control of the weight of her words." The energy on set changed as the realization of what had just happened set in, and some of the crew members quietly stepped away, unsure of how to proceed. The cast members usually quit to jump into heated discussions, but this time, another voice finally asked, and the assistant exhaled as if she had been waiting for this question. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I do know that I'm done being silent." Uncharacteristically downplayed, this wasn't just another reality TV scandal. This was something more profound and genuine. Then, for the first time since the assistant had spoken, the door to the set opened and a figure entered, Lil Scrappy. His presence alone caused the tension in the room to rise, and he looked more serious than anyone had ever seen him before. His eyes scanned the room before landing on the assistant. "I heard what you said." Everyone held their breath until he finally spoke in a calm but emotionally charged voice. "I need to talk to you." The assistant looked at him, her face unreadable, and he said, "Nothing left to talk about, Scrappy." Scrappy shook his head. "You said a lot, but he didn't say everything." This was the moment of the confrontation that no one had anticipated, but now that no one could look away from Scrappy, he took a step closer and spoke in a lower voice. Jaw clenched, "But that doesn't change the fact that you broke the silence." Then Scrappy said something that nobody expected, and the room braced for what was about to happen. Lil Scrappy's assistant breaking her silence wasn't just another reality TV scandal. It was a wake-up call. Too often, abuse in the entertainment industry is concealed behind the glamour and ignored until it becomes too big to be ignored. The assistant's words were suffocating. Now that Lil Scrappy was in front of her, the entire room was frozen in anticipation. knowing that this was a turning point not only for Scrappy and his assistant, but also for the entire Love and Hip Hop cast and crew. "I need to tell my side of the story," Scrappy repeated, his voice lower and more measured. The assistant stared at him, her expression unreadable, and she echoed her tone, which was a mix of disbelief and exhaustion. "Scrappy, this isn't about. You think I don't know?" That his voice wavered a little. "You think I don't sit with this every single day? I'm messed up, I know that." But he paused, struggling for the right words. "I never meant to hurt you like that." Something shocked the cast and crew that Scrappy wasn't immediately denying the allegations, and others remained skeptical, waiting to see how far he was willing to go in admitting his past. "This is about the truth." Scrappy closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, and when he opened them, he looked directly at her. "I was drunk, out of control, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was going through a lot of pressure, expectations, and everything that got to me." The assistant shook her head. "We all go through things, Scrappy, but not everyone takes their time." Her arms, "You never meant to hurt me, but you did it repeatedly." Her voice was firm and unwavering. Paying out on those closest to them, a few heads in the room nodded silently, and Scrappy's jaw tightened, almost threatening to lash out, but then something changed in his face, causing his shoulder to slump slightly. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost broken. "I don't even recognize that version of me," he said, "but I can't change the past. All I can do is own up to it." The assistant examined him intently, seemingly trying to ascertain whether his words were sincere, then owned up to it. Scrappy's eyes widened a little. "You want me to go on camera and say it?" She nodded. "You built your career in the public eye. You did this in the dark, but I had to live with it every day. If you really mean what you're saying, then be accountable. Let people see the real you, the good and the bad." Scrappy remained silent for a long moment. The tension in the room was unbearable, but then some of the producers looked at each other in shock. Was it your typical reality TV drama? This was something real and raw. The assistant asked, still doubtful, and Scrappy nodded again. "Yeah, I have to face this. I owe it to you and to myself." The assistant let out a breath, and her shoulders relaxed a little. "I hope you mean it," she said quietly, "because once this is out there, there's no turning back." The next few days were a blur. Scrappy sat down for an exclusive interview, admitting his past transgressions and expressing his sincere regret for his actions. The assistant decided to step away from the spotlight, allowing herself to heal after years of carrying the weight of silence. She didn't regret speaking out, and if anything, she hoped her story would empower others who had suffered in silence by demonstrating to them that alcohol had fueled his worst behavior and that he had hurt people he loved in ways he could never undo. Some fans supported him, applauding his honesty and willingness to take responsibility, while others weren't convinced, calling it a calculated move to save his career. They weren't alone, but for Scrappy, the road to redemption was just getting started. Would he actually change, take concrete steps to heal, or revert to his old habits? Only time would tell, but one thing was for sure, the truth was out, and there was no going back. If this story spoke to you, if you know someone who is being abused, know that there is help out there, your voice matters, and like the assistant, you deserve to be heard. Let's start a discussion about Scrappy's story. If you believe in second chances or that deeds speak louder than words, please share your opinions in the comments section below. Fame may conceal the truth, but sooner or later, eventually, it always becomes apparent.